In January of 2019, Shannon Knott, after years of anxiety surrounding multiple tests and treatments associated with what appeared to be diseased kidneys, finally had to face the stark reality that indeed she had kidney disease and there was no cure. It became evident that in order to have a new lease on life, she would need a new kidney. Now the question was, could she find a new kidney in time? Where would it come from? Who would be the donor? And would God furnish the strength and the faith and the hope in her search for a new lease on life? Hello everyone, I'm Deacon Greg Bevan, and welcome to Discussions on Meade County Catholic Radio 95.3, WLHN FM, broadcasting from Brandenburg, Kentucky. Organ donations are nothing new, of course, and most of us are aware of their need and how they impact the lives of so many, including not only the recipient, but the donors, the families, and the communities who surround those affected by these miracles. Our guest today is Shannon Knott, who has recently received a new kidney and a new lease on life, and her husband, the donor, Randy Knott. When we return, Shannon and Randy will share their story of love and life and the beauty of a merciful Father in heaven.
From everyone at Meade County Catholic Radio, we want to thank you for listening to our own talk show Discussions. Our shows are meant to inform, teach, and strengthen our faith in Jesus Christ. Let Catholic Radio be part of your everyday listening experience by signing up for our own Meade County Catholic Radio app, where you can enjoy all of EWTN's programming around the clock and anywhere you go. Or tune us in at 95.3 FM, broadcasting from Brandenburg, Kentucky. Now stay tuned for the heartwarming story of Shannon and Randy Knott.
Well, welcome back to Discussions as we welcome to our show Shannon and you, Randy. And we thank both of you for being here today to share your story of love with each other and also the experience that you went through with your kidney.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Shannon, let's begin, and Randy too. Of course, a lot of times the wives speak for us, and we'll let maybe her begin a bit about your all's loving family life, not only your extended family, but also your life prior to the onset of this terrible disease.
Well, I would say we were average, you know. We've got 2 kids. We both worked. We still work. We had everything that we needed, most of everything that we wanted. You know, no big worries. Maybe trying to decide where we were going to stay on summer vacation. I would say we were just, you know, average.
Kind of had your life out in front of you, I suppose.
Yeah, not, you know, no worries. We were getting ready to start on a house. We'd built one. We were getting ready to start on another one. You know, we were just trucking along.
Well, Shannon, serious health issues can come on slowly at times, and in your case it did. The diagnosis a lot of times is very difficult. And particularly in your situation, there were long periods of uncertainty. I'm sure there was a lot of concern within the family and kind of a lack of clear direction for the future. If you will, for just a moment, walk us through the emotional battle that you had to face and the family had to face and that you were impacted with, especially your 2 young children, how that affected everyone's emotions and outlook on life and kind of this scary time in your life.
I was terrified. I was afraid of missing all those milestones, the important milestones in my kids' lives. turning 16, graduating from high school, going to college, getting married, having babies of their own. I probably worried more than anybody.
Rightfully so, I'm sure, of course. And Randy, I know it was tough on you to see her and her fright and concern. So many unknowns when you're associated with something like this.
Yeah, it was rough watching her just losing the battle with what she had going on, and she was fighting. Her kidneys wasn't there, but her body was in great shape.
Mm. And I'm sure what added to the stress and the unknowns and the heartache were those two young children you had at home. They saw their mom sick. But Shannon, you said earlier that they were stronger than what you had probably anticipated.
They seemed fine. They didn't talk about it a whole lot. They asked a few questions. If I had doctor's appointments, I would always get a text from Hayden, my son, before I got home, and he just, how did your doctor's appointment go? And Lena just never talked about it too much. One time we were in the grocery store, and we were in the canned goods where the beans are, and they have all the different kind of beans. And I think she was about 8 when this all first started, and we were walking down that aisle, and she was like, "Mama, these are kidney beans. If you eat a bunch of these, will they help your kidneys?" So I don't think in the beginning she really understood what was going on, and we didn't really, tell them, this is going to be an awful situation. My kidneys are finally going to quit, and with them, we just kind of from appointment to appointment, just told them what they needed to know.
Did they have a tendency to give you strength in your family? Thinking, you're having to deal with it on one level, but they appear to be dealing with it. Did the fact that they dealt with it maybe better than you expected help you?
Yeah. And even, Randy being so strong. When I did have moments of weakness, I just think about them, and I can do this too. We can all get through it.
Randy, us guys are fixers. We're people, and then I know you come from a similar background that I do. We work with our hands a lot. We're used to starting up a chainsaw and cutting down a great big tree. But these are situations where, to some degree, you kind of feel kind of helpless a little bit, don't you?
Yes, there was a lot of things that I couldn't do to help out, and kind of felt bad about it, but didn't know really what to do. Tried to keep everything going the best we could, and had lots of help.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that initial battle began in the fall of 2014 as you were first alerted to a possible health issue, finally leading up to you being placed on the kidney transplant list in January of 19. Talk a little bit about those. And that was a 5-year period, I think, when you were finally placed on the kidney list. Talk a little bit about those 5 long years.
It was just a lot of up and down. I've had high cholesterol for several. I had high cholesterol for several years before finding out about all this, and so I had routine blood work every 6 months, and some blood work came back, and my kidney function was flagged. So we repeated the blood work, and the kidney function was still flagged. I was referred to a nephrologist. He did lots of blood work, and then he wanted me to have a kidney biopsy because he just wasn't sure what was going on, and so he wanted to be certain. Did the biopsy, then the diagnosis came back. and it's called IgA nephropathy. It's an autoimmune disorder where my body deposits IgA antigens into my kidneys, which damages the kidney. So, one of the first questions was, well, the biopsy was on the right kidney. Could the left kidney be okay? And with this disease, all any of the doctors could tell me is that it's different in every person. It progresses at different rates in every person, and no two people are alike. So it was just really 5 years of steroid therapy, blood work, doctor's appointments, more steroid therapy, blood work, doctor's appointments. When I would have the blood work and go back to the doctor to get the results, and things were a little bit better, I was just so full of hope. But then I started getting the results, that things are just stable. And that was okay too. And then it was, well, even though you're on steroids, things are still getting worse. So we might need to think about referring you for transplant and get that started. So it was just a lot of up and down.
Yeah. Well, eventually you were put on the list. You're now on the waiting list in the search for a perfect match for that life-saving kidney after all the ups and downs that you went through those 5 years. When we return, the story now changes a little if we want to know if it will come, that kidney, and where will that kidney come from, and that part will continue in Shannon and Randy's story when we continue. Don't go away.
In John's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 12, Jesus tells us to love one another as I love you. The story of Shannon and Randy Knott is a modern-day example of how we can show our love for Jesus by the way we show our love for those around us. Most of us will never experience the life-threatening and then a life-saving miracle as told by Shannon and Randy. Our loving Father is always walking along beside us. We thank them for sharing their story of unconditional love. And we want to thank those who have made this show possible, including Karen and Doug Stiff, Crystal and Stephen Barr, John O'Brien, Karen and Tom Beanock, Vernon Pike, Barbara and Charlie Wilkins, Catherine and Jim Thisson, and the staff at Painville Elementary School. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back to Discussions on Meade County Catholic Radio and our guests Shannon and Randy Knott and their story about Shannon's search for a new kidney. Shannon, after 5 years of being surrounded by doctors, tests, family, friends, and the community, it becomes a waiting game now. During all this time, what part did prayer play in your life as you dealt with the most difficult challenge that you had ever faced?
Wow. I know I prayed harder and more often, but early on, I didn't want to pray for myself. It just seemed selfish.
Shannon, during that time, Did you feel the prayers of your faith, your church community, your those people that you worked with and your family?
Yes. It was overwhelming, the way people reached out. And if we were out, in town, and, if I would run into somebody, I always ask, how I'm doing. And it was overwhelming.
We spoke earlier of your two children. I can remember many times when Hayden would come to church, obviously. I would see him and I would ask him how Mom's doing, and I reflect a little bit on what you mentioned previously. He was always stable, and he appeared confident. Now, whether I'm sure he was hiding a lot of that, but I'm sure he took a lot of strength from your strength, and I'm sure you took some strength from his as well, and probably a lot of that had to do with prayer, I guess, at that time. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
A coworker, I was talking to two of my coworkers and told them that I felt selfish praying for myself, and one of them said, if you feel selfish praying for yourself, just pray that God gives you the grace and the strength to handle what's coming. And so that's when I would pray. That's what I would pray for. I just wanted to get through it and get to the other side.
Randy, I know you had the opportunity. There were times, obviously, when you were isolated or insulated to some degree. And Randy, I know you were in the community as well. I'm sure you got a lot of feedback from people, letting them know that they're praying and have you in their thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, there were times you out in the community, people would ask how everybody was doing and tell them they would tell us they was praying for us, and was always asking if there was anything they could do to help. The community was really helpful. They helped us out a lot.
Well, we're now in that process, and for those of us not familiar with the actual search for donors, we know that that's a process, but unless we're directly connected with it, we're not sure how that goes on exactly. Can you give us some insight into how the search for a donor actually takes place?
Someone who's interested in being a living donor would just contact in my case it was UK, contact them. They fill out a questionnaire. Some people are eliminated just based on the questions that the questionnaire asks. It asks a lot of medical things that are related, kidney related, like kidney infections, UTIs, medicines that you might be taking. So people can be eliminated, after just a few questions. But those that are not move on to blood work. And I guess they can do amazing things with medicine. Randy and I only shared one. We have the same blood type, which you have to have, and we only had one antigen in common, and there are 6 that they look at. And so I was worried because we only had one in common, but they assured us that there are successful transplants with no antigens in common. So after the blood test, the donor goes through some evaluations, just testing EKGs, chest x-ray, CT scans, just to make sure that they're in really good health.
Well, it's been several months now in search for that match, and of course, as you just alluded to, Randy, you were finally determined to be an acceptable match. How difficult was it really for both of you to know that you would both be going through surgery, you would both be having the similar but different surgeries to some degree for different purposes, and what were some of your thought processes and your conversations in reference to that?
Well, again, I was terrified. We were both going to be put under and cut on, and I was scared to death. We're both going to be off work, both laid up. We were going to have somebody take care of us, and drive us. The kids, they had stuff going on. I don't think he was as worried. He didn't seem to be.
No, I was ready to get things rolling and make this a better life for her. We was praying for everything to work out, and it worked out, and everything's working great.
We talked a little earlier about men have a tendency to want to be fixers. This really, Randy, puts you in a spot to say, hey, now maybe I can fix this thing, by giving my kidney. Was that kind of part of your thought process?
Well, not really, I guess, but I was there to do what I could to help out. Once we learned that everything was going to be matching up, her kidneys was getting in pretty bad shape. It was time for something to happen, so it was time for me to step up and get things rolling with it.
And you did that, both of you, stepped up to the plate, we might say, and that transplant took place on August the 15th of 2019. Can you take us through that process? And more importantly, after you do that, tell us how you're both doing now.
Well, several appointments beforehand, both in separate operating rooms. The way the surgeon explained it, they would be ready to take his kidney out as soon as my surgeon had me ready to put one in. And they said that they had it down to, it was like I can't remember what he said, a fine dance.
Kind of like a tag team in sports.
Yeah, that they do. They had it down to a science, and I think our surgery didn't take as long as they had anticipated. And he spent just a couple of days in the hospital. I was there for 5. I've had a few hiccups along the way, an infection, and then a blood clot that put me back in the hospital. But we are 17 weeks, I think. 17 weeks post-transplant, and I feel great.
Great.
I feel great.
Randy, it didn't take you quite as long to recover, obviously, but I'm going to guess you got house burned.
Yeah, it didn't take long sitting around the house. It was time for me to get out and to start doing something. I couldn't sit at home. I had to get out, move around, go visit somebody, or do something to spend some time. Sitting in the house was getting old. It was closing in on me, it felt like.
Yeah, you're going to say you thought you built a big house, but you didn't realize how small it was,
yeah,
right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, your work is physical work, too. I mean,
right.
You exert a lot of physical energy. Has that impacted you any from a strength standpoint or endurance standpoint?
No, I cannot tell any difference at all in anything. I feel the same. They said I'd be really tired afterwards, but I never was really tired. The first few days, maybe I would sleep, take a nap throughout the day, but after that, my strength was back and I was ready to go.
We mentioned early in the show about a miracle. It's a miracle, really, when you think about taking part of your body and putting it in somebody else and bringing new life to them. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Many of us go through life and we take the moments that we spend together, in our family, with our children and so forth. But we take that for granted just all too often. How has these past 5 years changed your view of life, and what can we learn about this special gift that God has given to all of us in transplants?
Just don't take anything for granted. Be thankful. Make the best of what you have.
You never know when you're going to get a curveball thrown at you, for sure.
Today, after how many weeks did you say?
I think it's 17.
17 weeks, okay. So when you get up in the morning, you just probably, I'm guessing now, You feel that new challenge in life, that new certainty, that new confidence, and I know for years maybe that wasn't there, but you feel
Right.
that now.
Yeah. I think I'm just definitely less anxious, more at ease, ready to start planning some more family vacations.
I know you've gone back to work. What's it been, 3 or 4 weeks now, or a month?
Yes.
How did that help? I mean, did it bring life back to normal a little bit more for you and the family?
Yes, just getting back on a routine, having a schedule. There are lots of things you can do at home, but cleaning wasn't what I wanted to do. I was glad to be back. I was glad to be with the kids, with my coworkers, and just, know that I'm getting up at this time. I've got to be at work at this time. Lunch is between this hour and this hour. Go home. Still not sure what we're having for supper. We'll have something though. So it was just nice to get back in the swing of things.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I know that there's still some uncertainty there, but what is the prognosis from this point on?
The doctors act like, everything's good. I still have regular. Right now, I'm still doing blood work once a week, and I see a doctor I'm at every 3 weeks now, and they keep a close eye on my kidney function through the blood work, and a lot of the one specific anti-rejection medicine has to be adjusted quite a bit. I'm closer now to the 6-month mark, which will be February, and at that time they'll start decreasing some of the anti-rejection meds, and I won't have to wear my mask in public, so they'll start giving me back a little bit of an immune system. And
Great. Well, your story is a beautiful story. I know this is very early on in that process and not real easy to talk about now because the emotions are still so close to your heart and have been. But we certainly want to thank both of you all for sharing your story with us. Because your story is more than just a medical story. It's a story of love. It's the story of sharing. And if you want to get down to scripturally speaking, Jesus came to give his life for us. And we're about to celebrate that in the next couple of weeks for Christmas. So I cannot imagine what this Christmas looks like for you and your family. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Happy.
Yeah. So our wish to you is a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
We hope that you continue to grow and that you continue to strengthen, and that your story will actually give hope to others who are facing the same need in their life and transplants, whether it's a kidney or other type of areas that can be transplanted to give people some hope. And, our prayer for you is that God continues to strengthen both of you, not only you but your families, and certainly want to wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Meade County Catholic Radio, 95.3 FM, broadcasting from Brandenburg, Kentucky. I'm Deacon Greg Bevan, and may God bless each and every one of you. We now return to our regularly scheduled programming, now in progress.
Not to mix but straight, Deo mix Deo, not to mix but straight, Lumen is Lumine.